James Tuckerman, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing? All right?
Good to see you again, mate. It's been a little while since we've done one of these. Glad we managed to line this one up.
Yeah, and we've known each other for a really long time too. So it's nice to catch up, despite the fact that we're moving around different parts of the world.
I tell you what, coordinating time zones and stuff like that was a nightmare, but we managed to get it done today. So, James, first up, I have talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and I've heard a lot of crazy stories, but I think yours might just take the cake. You got kidnapped. What happened?
Yeah, all right. So this was a bit of time back. So I was in my early 20s and I was backpacking in Morocco. And there is a good business lesson in this, but I was backpacking in Morocco and I was in my early 20s. And Morocco is the northern tip of Africa, just across the Gibraltar Strait from Spain. And I caught the ferry across and I'm full of enthusiasm. I'm backpacking on my own. And I put my trust in a young fella called Sharif. And he said that he was going to give me a tour. And I went, oh, that sounds fantastic. I'm going to go see all these amazing things in Tangiers, the border town in Morocco, the port it is. And so he took me to a quieter part of town. And I'm going, wow, I'm getting the authentic experience. And then before you know it, there's a car pulls up and there's a bunch of guys and one's got a gun and one's got a knife and they're shuffling me into the back of this car. And spoiler alert, I do escape, just in case you're getting nervous, right? So I didn't die. So I got hustled into the back of the car. And and it was freaky. And what they did is that they took me to ATMs and they wanted me to clear out my ATMs. And I don't know whether it was just because I was so nervous that I couldn't get the numbers in right, or whether it was because I'd run out of money, or maybe I'd like hit the numbers wrong so many times that the machines had shut down and I couldn't get the money up. And of course they were constantly threatening me. And they were trying to get me to call back home to Australia to see if we could get some money from my parents. Of course, it's the middle of the night. They're asleep. They're not waking up. And then eventually they took me to this rundown, empty hotel. And I get put in this room in this empty hotel. And, I'm making light of it now, but this was possibly one of the worst nights of my life and one of the most harrowing experiences. So they put me into this room and of this empty, rundown hotel. And they put me in there probably late afternoon, maybe early evening. And they didn't give me any food and they didn't give me any water. And there was a tap in there and I turned on the tap and like brown stuff came out and a mosquito came out the end of the tap end. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And of course, I'm very afraid, so I don't go. So I'm not going to sleep. I'm wondering what I can do, and the night just kept going on and on and on, and I couldn't sleep. And I'm getting desperately thirsty. And I looked around, and I actually saw my backpack. My backpack, the classic backpacker's backpack, was on the floor, and it was just there, and they hadn't interfered with it. They hadn't opened it. They hadn't ransacked it. It had stayed with me the whole time. And my brain went, that's weird. And I remembered something that my mother used to say to me. And it's a saying that we use in our business all the time now. And we also use it with our clients and our students in the B2B school. But when I was growing up, my mum had a saying which was an acronym. And she said, fear is an acronym. Fear spells false evidence appearing real. And in our daily lives, we're constantly presented with these scenarios, and part of our brain's always going to look for the danger. And often we'll be in a situation and we'll be afraid, but it's false evidence appearing real. You get that email from a client and it says, please call me. And the brain like goes, oh no, they're cross with me. And then you call them up and they say, I want to spend more money with you, right? False evidence appearing real. And in most of our situations, in most of our lives, the situations that we get in are not dangerous. They're not life-threatening, which means that this idea of false evidence appearing real is a very valuable little mantra to have. But in this situation, the stakes were high. But still, I looked around and I went, hang on, these guys haven't interfered with my bag. They haven't interfered with my physical, they haven't hurt me in any way. They've threatened me a lot. But even their threats were like cloaked. They were things like, you could go missing and no one would ever know where you disappeared, right? There was never any direct threats. My brain went, false evidence appearing real. There's all these different situations here, but no one's laid a finger on me. They haven't touched my bag. And my brain went, well, perhaps in this part of the world, you can get away with harassing a tourist, and the penalties are low. But the moment that you put a finger on them, the penalties are high. And at that moment, the night had gone through. I was desperately thirsty. As I said, I hadn't slept a wink. And I just went, screw it. And I just went, you know what? If I'm stuck, take one small step. That's what we do in business. One small step forward. If you're procrastinating, take one small step. What's the thing that you could do? And I went, okay, I'm gonna put my bag on. So I picked up my bag and I put my bag on. And then I stared at the door. And then I walked towards the door, one small step at a time. And then I opened the door and it was unlocked. I turned the handle, it was unlocked. And I opened the door and it was unlocked. And I walked out and there was this young guy sitting on a bench, and I'd caught him napping. And he did have a rifle across his lap. But however, when I caught him napping, he went, oh. And it was honestly like a kid that had just been busted doing something naughty, right? And immediately I'm like, this is like a child. This is not like a real adult. This is a child. And my brain's like going, I'm not even sure that rifle's real, And he's sitting there, he's sleeping. I've caught him napping. And I just stared at him. And then I just kept walking. I walked past and walked past and walked past and walked past. And then went down the stairs. There was no elevator, down the stairs. And then walked out and I could see the water in the distance. And I just went, I'm just going to walk to the water. And I walked to the port and I got on the first ferry that was there and went straight back to Spain. But the business lesson in it, or the life lesson that's helped me so many times during the business, is that two-part thing. One, it's the acronym, false evidence appearing real. But also two, second, we can also take these micro steps, and they're micro gambles. In our business, we call them RFAs, not ready, aim, fires, but ready, fire, aims. And we just take these micro gambles or these micro steps, and we look out and we see what happens. And before you know it, we're out the door and we're on our way and we're moving towards the next big thing. So that, Ryan, is the story about how I got kidnapped in Morocco.
I like that there's a business lesson in that, but bloody hell, there's got to be an easier way to learn that, surely.
It took me about 10 years to even talk about it, right? Oh. Yeah, and I hit Spain, and I went as far north in Spain that I could to a town called San Sebastian, and I booked into a hostel place, a pension, and I drank for about 10 days straight. Yeah. Yeah.
Steady the nerves a bit.
Steady the nerves a bit. Wow. I don't know if anyone met me during those 10 days, but I would have been a weird unit. You've ever traveled and if you ever backpacked and you've been in a hostel and there's that one weird unit? I think for that 10 days, I was that guy.
Have you been back to Morocco since then? Or
no,
just that part of the world is just...
No, I haven't. Every now and then, we'll travel to Southeast Asia or somewhere like that because it's easy to get to from Australia. And the first couple of times that I left the country, when I went and I arrived, there were some moments where I, freaked out a bit if there's a lot of people making a lot of noise and pulling at you and pulling around. But yeah, there was one time in Thailand, and I was there with my wife, Catherine, and someone came over and I'm like, get the fuck away, and the guy's like, whoa. And Catherine's like, whoa. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Triggered.
Yep, triggered.
Yeah. I had a similar story in Thailand, but maybe that's a conversation for the other day. I got chased down the street by gangsters with machetes, and that was pretty eye opening too. Yeah. I'll tell you that one another time. Hey, it's Ryan here. I'm glad you're enjoying the video. Listen, if you want to meet me or some of the people that I interview, you should really join the Startup Source SaaS founder community. It's a private Slack group for SaaS founders based outside of Silicon Valley who are past the idea stage and want to focus on growth. About 30% of our members are doing over $1 million a year in revenue, so it's a pretty high caliber group. You'll get access to regular mastermind calls and workshops, and every week we share exclusive marketing tactics and resources that you can use to grow your business faster. So, if you want to give yourself an unfair advantage and learn from other SaaS founders who are 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, head over to startupsource.com and sign up. I think there's a link in the description down below as well. Anyway, I'll see you in there. Let's go back, because speaking of business lessons, so I think if we fast forward a couple of years, you had I guess a rock bottom experience as well. There was a point where was this just after the financial crisis where you were nearly $1 million in debt, and then you managed to claw your way out of it, bounce back, and now you've built an empire and you've never looked back. Talk me through that.
Yeah, I've had a couple close to rock bottom experiences, but that one was a big one. Yeah, that was the GFC, the global financial crisis. And I'm just looking around me. I do have one. Yeah. So in my 20s, I launched a national business magazine in my home country, Australia. Business magazines in Australia when I was growing up were really dry and they were really, really boring. And there was generally some stale, pale and male dude on the front cover, with dandruff on his shoulders wearing a badge. So that was the nature of business magazines in Australia. And so I would have been, about 23. And I maybe 20. No, I was older than that. I think I was about 23 when I had the idea. I think I was 26 when I went home to my parents' suburban home. And I said, Mum, Dad, I think I want to launch a national business magazine to rival the market leader in Australia, which is called BRW. I said, hey, Mum, hey, Dad, I want to move home so I can launch a national business magazine to rival BRW. And fortunately, my parents are reasonably open-minded. And my mum said, sure, if you can show me a business plan. So I went away and I wrote a business plan. Now, here's the cool thing. I'd never written about business plan before. I'd never even seen a business plan before, but neither had my mum. So I presented my parents with this business plan. I think Dad had seen a couple before, but they went, okay, well, you're committed. And they let me move home, and I launched this national business magazine in my home country, Australia. And I launched it with personal savings from the spare bedroom of the suburban home. My sister's old bedroom, it had love heart curtains, and it still had the Wham posters on the cupboard doors. And I was launching a business magazine. I had a computer. I had what was called an ADSL connection at the time, which meant you could get internet, phone, and fax. And that was it. And during the day, I would write. During the day, I would sell ads. During the day, I'd sell ads. On the weekends, I'd write every article. And if you look at the early editions, there's articles that have with my mum as a byline, my friend Dave from primary school as a byline, my dog had a byline, Wolfgang, because you couldn't have a magazine with one guy had written all the articles. So I wrote the articles on the weekend. I sold advertising during the day. I did the admin and bookkeeping and the subscription stuff at night. But the phone would ring, and because we were on newsstands, we were in airports, we were in Borders bookshops, if you can remember them. And I'd get a phone call, and someone would say, "Oh, can I please speak to your subscriptions department?" And I'd go, "Yeah, sure, not a problem." Subscriptions, and I did that for an entire year, and then we won we won best magazine launch of the year because we just come out of nowhere. It was I had personal savings. Then that was the first edition. Wiped out all my personal savings. I'll do the numbers for you, Ryan. I don't often talk about this, but I think that you'll find this interesting, and your audience, I will too. But the first edition was going to cost $40,000 to produce. Magazines are expensive, and this is 20 years ago too.
Yeah.
It was going to cost $40,000 to produce. So what I did is I went, that's not a problem. I'll just get $40,000 worth of advertisers into it. So I went out and I hustled. And I sold, I can't remember I sold about $20,000 worth of ads. But I was still 20 grand short. But I had personal savings of $23,000, which I was going to, back in those days, that could be a deposit on an apartment or something like that. Not anymore. But anyway, and so I went, you know what? I can spend this money now because I'm young and I can always make this money back, but I'll never have an opportunity like this before again. And I've never had an opportunity like this before. I'll never have one like this again. And you know what? Once the first edition's out, it's going to be super easy to sell advertising. So I dropped my money into it. Had $3,000 working capital on the $40,000, overhead. Got that edition out and then went out and hustled for ads on that one. Now, the second one, Ryan, did I make $40,000 worth of ads? Did I sell $40,000 worth of ads for the second edition? What do you think?
Is this where the story turns south? What happened?
28,000.
Okay.
And so I was short 12. I was still short 12. And, but however, I got a letter from the wonderful Visa company and it was offering me a $15,000 credit card because before that I was working a day job and I had a salary and they, in their database, I've got a fine salary. So I got this letter offering me a $15,000 credit card. So I signed up immediately and that was 12 grand for the shortfall. And again, 3 grand working capital. Then the third edition broke even. And then the fourth edition doubled. So then I was like, all right, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm
fist bump for you, sir.
Fist bump. And I'm totally on my way. But the magazine came out and there was a lot of buzz around it. And I won best magazine launch of the year. I think that you'll appreciate this too, Ryan. For subscriptions, I pulled together every business card I'd ever collected, every name that I'd ever collected. I went and, because it was a startup entrepreneurship style magazine, the entrepreneur versus the venture capitalist, I went and I just went and grabbed email addresses from venture capital firms and what have you. There was no culture of real innovation and entrepreneurship and startup culture in Australia back then. We called it commercializing Australian innovation, dedicated to the commercialization of Australian innovation. Yeah. Cheesy, huh? Because entrepreneur was a dirty word. Startup culture didn't exist. But you'll appreciate this. I pulled together a list of about 2,000 names. I sent a BCC email, and I got my first 150 subscribers that way. That was the beginning. Ran the ads. And it went, and it just grew. It grew and grew for about 4.5 years, and I was named best small publisher in Australia twice, which was amazing because I was a kid. And when I say small publisher in the days, it was absolutely a one-man show. And then I began to recruit people. I got it to about 14 people, and then it was 2008, 2009, and then that was the GFC, and the GFC was a big one. But that year was a perfect storm for magazines. And that's because Google started to roll out an ad platform that was measurable. Now, it had been doing that since about 2004, I think, but it really was building buzz, particularly in Australia at that time, 2008. So suddenly advertising could be measurable. But before that, you could run, you could have a big ad in a magazine and you'd charge 4,000, 10,000, whatever it was. And you'd say, oh, how did the ad go? And they'd go, I don't know. There was that saying, I know that half my advertising works. I just don't know which half. And then you'd go hit the squash court. But yeah, so that was the big one. That was the first big one. Suddenly advertising became measurable. Second thing is Steve Jobs launched these tablets. And not everyone had one. But the magazine industry was going, oh my, that's the future now. And so that became a big deal. And then, of course, the GFC hit. And the first thing that everybody did was they pulled back on their ads. And I remember in October 2020, 2008, I was going to say 28, 2008, one of our advertisers reached out. I think it was PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they pulled back like $250,000 worth of ad spend. And this is, it was in a contract that like booked it, for the next year. And I'm like, well, you can't do that. And they're like suing you. And I was not very nice to the woman on the call. If you ever see this, if she sees this by accident, sorry, mate. But what I didn't realize is that Tracy had to fire like 18 of her team members that morning. So she doesn't give a shit about my $250,000 ad spend. She said just had to fire her team. And that was the vibe. People were like arriving at work, firing their team, slashing their ad spend, and it was going crazy. So that was October 2008, and that was pretty awful. And then by early 2009, it was really clear the writing was on the wall. And by then one of these would cost about $100,000 to produce, just one edition. And there's a saying in magazines, if you want to make a small fortune in publishing, start with a big one. Because all you need is one edition where you don't sell enough ads to cover the cost, and you're down. Because you make barely any money from retail sales. You make barely any money from subscription sales. It all comes from the ads. That 80-90% comes from the ads. You'd almost give away the subscriptions and make it easy for people to buy on the newsstand so that you can produce more copies to sell more ads. So we were watching these editions, and we knew that there was a point where we just wouldn't be able to put out any more magazines. And I got married in early 2009, and went on my honeymoon, and basically came back, and we had a key investor in the business. We had a board of advisors. My dad was part of that board. My editor, Paul Ryan, and they're all just sitting there like, and what's up, guys? And they go, yeah, we just can't put out another magazine. It would just be too dangerous to do so. So we made the announcement that we were going to go 100% digital. We wrote letters to our subscribers. The interesting thing is that most of the subscribers replied and said, "This is fantastic." We even offered to either refund their subscription fees or give them another magazine, because we'd done deals with other magazines where they could get another magazine instead. And a bunch of people replied and said, "No, just go online. This is the future." Everyone was really supportive, except our competitors. Yeah, and we got headlines like Anthill Magazine bites the dust. That's the name of the magazine. Anthill Magazine, latest victim of the financial crisis. It was real. They were really, really mean. One of those articles made my wife cry, and the journalist who wrote that I will never forgive. I will never forgive, because it was such a hatchet job. And yeah, we had to make this decision. And then by mid 2009, we know that we're going online, and we had to sit down and have this really uncomfortable, conversation with the team. Had to make pretty much everyone redundant. Yeah, and at the end of that, walked away. Are you ready? Walked away with $988,000 worth of debt on the company balance sheet. So $12,000 shy of $1 million. Part of me was like going, quick, I should go out and spend $12,000. Just for the plot, just for the story. But that's what it said on the balance sheet. And then I had the choice: do we go into receivership? Do I go into administration? What do I do? And had some really good conversations with investors and suppliers, and brokered an amazing number of deals, and said, listen, we're going to push forward online, and I'm not going to file for administration. I'm going to do what I can to pay you back, or we're going to do deals, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. And they're by and large all really supportive with that. And yeah, within about 3 years, I was back on track. And what's also really surprising is that we announced that we were going to go 100% digital. We had no money, right? Probably again another credit card with a bit of money on it, about $1,000 or something. and I invested in a $500 WordPress website, and doubled down on that. And about 5 to 6 months after that, there was an organization called Nielsen Online Ratings, and they were trying to rank the business and finance websites in Australia at a time where there was, not that many websites, so you could try and attempt to rank this stuff. And we came in within the top 50 business and finance websites in Australia by traffic. And
Wow.
we were beating one of the national newspapers by traffic with our $500 WordPress site. So the wild thing is that there was a period there where I was totally out in the wilderness. Again, I was running the business on my own. It was all online. There was a wonderful period where people were still spending magazine type ad budgets online, but the overheads are just gone. Wonderful little window of time. But I was out. I was trying different stuff. I was consulting. And remember how I said that I got all these terrible headlines that were just super, super mean? I don't know, about 6 months later, I got a phone call from one of the biggest players on the planet that had been so mean in their headlines. And they reached out and they said, "Hey, can you come and do a little bit of consulting to us? We want to know how you pulled this off." And the funny thing is, people say that revenge is best served cold. No, revenge is best served as an invoice, hot off a printer, right? With a bunch of zeros next to it. That's what you want. But yeah. So that was the first real low point. And that was a tough one. Again, I could go back to false evidence appearing real. There was a lot of evidence that was definitely real, but I said, you know what? If I can negotiate with enough people and do enough deals and put people on payment plans, worst case scenario here is that I get a quarter of the way or halfway through paying off people, and then I slip into administration or receivership. But I never had to. Indeed, it was about 3 years down the line, I sent an email to a printer, the people that print magazines, and it was like, "Hey, I've just paid you my last monthly installment of $500. Thank you for being so patient. I'm sorry that I was such a bad client." And they replied and they were like, "You are the best type of client. We wish we had more clients like you. We think that you're great. Most people would leave us in the lurch, but you paid us back, even if it took you 3 years at $500 a month."
I think there's a lot to be said for having some integrity, especially in the business world. I've met a lot of entrepreneurs, and this is probably a bit more common in the whole VC backed startup world. But they will raise a bunch of money, they'll go out, they'll burn through it all, wipe their hands, walk away onto the next one, and the thing is, yes, you can do that, and the consequences are pretty minimal because there's nothing in the business at that early stage. But I think it takes a lifetime to build a reputation, and it takes an instant to lose it all. So the fact that you went back to the people, that you owed money to, and you said, "Hey, I'm not going to walk away from it. I'm going to figure out how to pay it back," and you followed through on that, I think that speaks volumes. I think that's really important.
The world is a very small place now. I mean, I don't know if I could have lived with myself, but the world is still a very small place. We've both got Australian accents. I'm in Australia right now. Where are you? You're in South America somewhere?
Yeah. Argentina.
Argentina,
and
right?
there's about 4 Aussies here. So yeah.
Yeah. But Australia is like a tiny country, 25, 27 million people. And, if you get a reputation, it's going to stick. It's probably one of the reasons why Australians have a reputation for being honest. And it probably is because the repercussions for being not honest are so severe, because you can't just travel across states because you live in a country like America with a population of 340 million, or the UK with 150 million. You can't just skip across town and you're out of sight, out of mind. Everybody knows everyone, so you've got to be honest. But me personally, anyway, I had to do that, and I had investors too. I had one key investor, and we ended up coming to an agreement at times. And he was a mentor of mine, a wonderful guy, taught me so much. And we had to sit down one day, and he said, "Well, it was fun while it lasted," kind of thing, right? And I was like, "Oh, I'm not quite ready to give up yet." And then we over time we came to terms, and we're still friends. That's the way it should be. Even though he lost a bit of money, but he found a way to offset it. So whatever.
Well, better than losing the whole thing, right? So there's that's I guess that's the risk you take when you're an investor, and he was prepared to walk away from it. But I'm glad he stuck with it.
Yeah, and it's also relative. It's relative. You hear about stories of people like Kerry Packer, and which was if you're from Australia, you'll know Kerry Packer because he was one of our first billionaires, and he owned a whole lot of media companies and a whole lot of casinos. But he'd go gamble, and he'd lose $1 million in a day. And we'd go, and we're talking about in the 1990s, and everyone would go, what? But relative to him, it was like taking it was the equivalent of a $50 flutter. Relative to him, to his net worth, it was like, oh yeah, I've just lost $50. And it's relative to to different people depending on where they're at as well.
Yeah, I mean, you hear the stories about, like the what is it, like Ronaldo, like the Cristiano Ronaldo, the famous soccer player. If he drops $100,000 in the street, it's not worth his time to bend over and pick it up. He's better off continue. So there is that, but that's only true of a very, very small number of people.
The further that you get ahead in business, the more true that story is. I had someone send us an email the other day because we were selling a $100 product. And this business owner was saying, send me proof that it works. And we're like, send some testimonials. He goes, no, I need proof. And I'm like, I don't know what to give you here, right? And then he sent a third email. And I'm like thinking, in the amount of time that he spent to try and source his proof for his $100 product, he could have bought it. He could have executed on the strategies, found out whether it was working or not. And if it wasn't, he could have asked for a refund. But he spent a month trying to get proof for a $100 purchase. And there are just times where, as you get further into the journey, there are things that you've just got to stop doing. Speed is money. There's a great book, Buy Back Your Time. I don't know if you've read this one yet, Ryan. But
Dan Martell,
Martell.
Yeah.
One of them is about just managing your time better, because it's the only thing that you and I have that is equal. We have 24 hours in a day. We have 7 days in a week. Every other aspect of our life is unequal. You've got a glorious head of hair. I got zero, right? That's it. I got a cool R2-D2 robot. You don't. But however, the one thing that we do have in common is that we've both got 24 hours in a day, and some people just use it so badly.
Absolutely. That's one of the common bits of business advice I often see, particularly. So I took over the SaaS marketing subreddit a while back. And the idea was that would be the sort of earlier stage thing that would plug into Startup Source, which is the community I run for SaaS entrepreneurs. So I wanted that to be almost like the top of the funnel. You start off there, you learn a few things, and then you graduate. Once you get to a certain stage, you graduate to Startup Source, and that's where it would fit in. But you see a lot of people there chasing really, really, really small customers. They're struggling to sell like a $5 a month subscription or a $10 a month subscription. They're saying, how do I do it? What, and part of the solution there always seems to be, well, maybe going after the wrong customers. It's really hard to sell to people who don't have any money. People who have money to spend tend to be the best at paying. They will pay you more money. And it's so much easier to get them to pay, and they'll give you far less hassle because their time is so much more valuable. And if you can just solve the problem for them, I don't know if you've found that. I'm sure. I want to kind of skip ahead a little bit because I'm interested in how you went from Anthill and clawing your way back and flipping into a completely digital only magazine and nailing that and paying off the nearly $1 million in debt that you'd accumulate. Again, fist bump for doing that. That's awesome. How did you then go into B2B Group? And I guess for anyone who hasn't come across your work yet, what is B2B Group and who is it for?
Yeah, sure. So you can see on the cap, if you're watching the video recording, it says B2B. That stands for business to business. And by the way, Ryan, there was a whole bunch of stuff there that you talked about that I desperately want to unpack. When you mentioned your subreddit group, I'm like, I want to talk about that. Also, you mentioned, people chasing cheapy clients. I also want to talk about that because in the B2B group, we have the B2B School, and B2B stands for business to business. And what we realized is that a lot of the sales and marketing training out there was for people trying to sell a $17 ebook, right? Or a pair of socks on Etsy, right? But B2B, business to business, are complex sales. You're a business you're selling to another business owner, or you're a business and you're selling to a senior decision maker within a business. And we're not selling $9 umbrellas unless we're selling packages of $1,009 umbrellas, right? B2B is complex because it's based a lot on trust. People often think it's based on relationships. They say, oh, in my space, it's all about relationships. No, relationships used to be the fastest way to build the trust, right? It's always been about trust, but often people would like, oh, I go to networking events, I get to know people, it's about the relationships. But there is a very time-consuming way to build trust. There are cheaper, easier ways to build trust. So B2B, it's about trust. It's generally not little ticket. As I said, it's not a $9 umbrella. It's usually bigger ticket. This day and age, by the way, at this point, when we're recording this in mid to late 2025, people say, oh, what's big ticket, what's little ticket? I've got an inflection point that we use, and it's $1,600. Now you go, that's not very big ticket. But the reason why is at this point in time, anything above $1,600 will typically require a conversation. And that's big ticket world. Suddenly we're having a conversation. If it's under $1,600, I can sell it off the back of a webinar, or a long form landing page, or a Jeff Walker sideways sales letter type thing, right? So it's about trust. It's big ticket. So it could be $1,600. It could be 1.6 million, right? But it's big, right? And generally, not always, but generally we're selling something that's intangible. It's a little bit abstract. It's a little bit complex. We're not selling a product or a service, even if we are, we're selling an outcome. So, I meet a business owner and I go, what do you do? And they go, I'm a search engine optimization specialist, right? And I go, cool, that's good. That must be interesting, which is code for that's not interesting, get me out of here. But however, if they're able to say, oh yeah, I help e-commerce sites get more sticky traffic, I like, okay, that's selling an outcome. That there's a target audience plus an outcome, I can see what they're selling. So yeah, B2B, it's complex. We're not selling $9 umbrellas. We're not selling $17 ebooks. We're selling trust. We're selling big ticket, and we're selling outcomes. So we created the B2B group for that. And one product within the B2B group is the B2B School. Now, a big factor within the B2B School is we teach top of funnel strategy, middle of funnel strategy, bottom of funnel strategy, which all have their own different moving parts. But I was fascinated just then when you said that you had bought a subreddit group. And I'm going to tell you why. It might not be reasons that you know, but however, this is classic top of funnel stuff. And top of funnel, historically, traditionally, and still to the case to this day, is to build awareness about what you do so that you can get people on your email database. It's still the same. I mean, like we were saying it 5 years ago, we were saying it 10 years ago. Get the attention at the top. Get the people on the database. Own the audience. Own the eyeballs. You've taken a really interesting approach there, because what you've done is you've acquired a subreddit group of about 11,000 people, of an audience that's specific to your area of expertise. Big F off tick there. But not only is this cool because you own the audience, so to speak, you can have mechanisms to get them off that platform and into your database. But here's the bit that you might not have realized is I mentioned SEO, like search engine optimization, is that these subreddit groups are probably one of the top three things that you can do if you want to embrace GEO, general engine optimization. I think they're now using AIO, artificial intelligence optimization. I don't know. We haven't got an acronym that everyone's settled on yet. But if you want to be found and recommended by search engines, AI engines like ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, whatever, one of the best things that you can do is be visible and present on subreddit accounts, and you've now got one. That's amazing.
Absolutely. And just to dive into that a little bit more, for anyone watching this. So I had a guy named Lars Lofgren on this show a little while back. He used to be the head of marketing for Kissmetrics. He built I think $7 million a year affiliate business, and then it all came tumbling down. So really, really big into SEO. And what he was explaining is that right now there's a bit of a golden window opportunity with Reddit in particular, because it works like a Facebook group in that hey, there's a community you can invite people to, you can join, people will post content that drives activity. So you don't have to be pushing and pushing and pushing all the time. But it's a channel that you own and control. And then you can siphon some of those people off onto your email list and, into your product and everywhere else. But it's public. So everything that gets posted on Reddit can be found and indexed on Google, can be found on search engines. And what's changed over the last, I guess, couple of years, if you look at a graph of like all the traffic on the internet, like Reddit has gone from, I think, the top 20th website in the world to inside the top 10. Don't quote me on those numbers. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it is rocketed ahead. Part of the reason for that is because a lot of the world is full of a lot of the online world is now full of AI written slop articles. It's just rehashed, really low quality. And you and I and everyone else, you can spot an article that's been written by AI like that straight away. And we're even starting to get that kind of inbuilt, banner blindness filter. What banner ads used to be. I think the original click through rate on a banner ad was something like 90%. When was the last time you ever clicked on a banner ad anymore? We filter them out. And we're starting to do the same thing with AI generated articles. But the thing is, because there's so much AI generated slop out there, Google needed to find a way to figure out, what's trustworthy and what's not. So they turned to a lot more user generated stuff like Reddit. Even Quora has gotten a bit of a resurgence from
Quora
that as well.
Medium too. Although Medium's also got lots of AI slop, it's by a lot better than other places.
Absolutely. And the other thing that's taken off as well is now, because people are sick of it, there has been a big uptick in people searching for whatever the topic name is, plus Reddit. So you've got kind of this perfect storm of things aligning. So, pro tip, if anyone's watching this, if you want to build that top of funnel, Reddit's an awesome place to do it for a lot of different spaces. But yeah, I can run you through the details of that. You touched on something before that I wanted to unpack. We kind of glossed over it a little bit, about building trust in B2B. And you said, there's sort of a bit of a misinterpretation there. A lot of people think it's about relationships, but you said it's really about building trust. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit more? And you said there were some faster ways of building trust than, going and networking on the golf course, for example. Talk us through that.
Yeah, so in our world, the B2B School, we have a framework, and we call it the B2B Fame Flywheel, right? I love a little bit of alliteration. The reason why is that when you're operating in the B2B space, I gave the example of an SEO guy. Maybe you're a web developer. Maybe you're a leadership trainer. Maybe you're a marketing agency owner, right? But you could even be, we had a guy come into our world that was selling drill bits for $250,000 a drill bit, right? Like for big drill bits for mining manufacturing and stuff. So B2B is, it's vast and it's diverse, right? But one of the things that we're all going to benefit from now is that if we could get a little bit more famous in our space. So we all know what, fame is. We know what Brad Pitt famous is, right? Then there's a level below that where you might be like, B grade famous or something like that, a local celebrity. But then there's like industry famous, and industry famous is like you're the go-to person in your industry. But even within industry famous, there is like B2B famous, and that's the person that they're almost like modern day mavens. They're the people that everybody knows that they are the expert in that particular space. One of the most valuable things that we could all have in today's ecosystem of technology is attention. Attention is the most valuable thing that we can have. We talked about Ryan's subreddit account. That is a way to get attention at the top of the funnel. A great thing that AI engines are looking at. Another one is a podcast. I would put podcasts also in my top 3 of things that AI engines are looking to. The crazy thing here is that as I'm talking through this, I'm talking about a world where you don't necessarily need a website. If you're a subreddit account, you're known for something across podcasts, you can build fame, you can get B2B famous. But the B2B fame flywheel, there are 3 parts to this. One is the authority piece. And you can only be an authority if you stand for something. You can't be a jack or Jill of all trades. If you're a jack and Jill of all trades, you're a master of none. And you've got to have a clear focus, a niche. The riches are in the niches, clear target audience. I still meet people and I say, who's your target audience? And they say business owners. And I'm like, I'm the B2B school. I mean, like all our clients are targeting other businesses and business owners. It's not a niche. And I'll turn around and I'll say, well, okay, is a locksmith your niche? And they go, oh no. And I go, but a locksmith is a business owner. And then, and I'll go, is Larry Page and Sergey, whatever, from Google, are they your target audience? Whatever. No. So there's this authority piece where you've got to have a clear target audience and you've got to stand for something. Now, if I bring this back to AI, we have a concept that we use and teach called triple down marketing. A fun way to explain that is think of Dilbert, the cartoonist, Dilbert Cartoons. You know that guy, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he was probably great at drawing, probably in the top 25% of the people that he knows, right? Better than 1 in 4 people, right? Great at drawing. But that only puts him in the top 25%. Then he went, you know what? Well, I'm pretty good at drawing, but and I'm better at comics. So he drills down into comics. And then he's in the top 10%, right? He's in the top 10%, right? Then he adds a layer to it, which is something that he's passionate about, finds funny, which is office politics. And he adds another layer to it until he's in the top 1%. Now, what everyone else is doing is they're saying, oh, I need to be broad. I need to, I need to make myself available to as many people as possible. In this day and age, we just get narrow and narrow. So when I say triple down, I often say one person, one problem, one product. So, and this can infiltrate all your marketing. So, one person is the target audience. What's a core problem that they have? And then what's a product that you can have to solve that particular problem? So using the example of the fame flywheel, I might say, all right, you are an expert in your field. So an agency owner, I could go real narrow and I could say, you're a leadership trainer, right? But you're an expert in your field. You're an authority in your field, right? That's my target audience. But however, you feel invisible. You're the best kept secret, there is, right? You got these amazing skills, but everybody's going to that other younger guy or gal on the internet because they got some pretty good TikTok reels, right? Or Instagram reels or TikToks, right? That would be that you feel invisible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a resource called the fame flywheel, right? Now, in the age of AI, we all want to get famous for something, and that is because AI, when it learns, it's looking for repetition and patterns, repetition, and differentiators. This is a fun game. You can go onto ChatGPT and you write, draw me a clock. And it will give you a picture of a clock. And it will be 10 past 10. That's what it will say on the clock. Then I'll go, okay, that's interesting, 10 past 10. Can you make the clock at 5:30? And it will say, here is a clock, which is 5:30. The clock will be 10 past 10. Now, if I go into Google and I type watches, I'm going to see a whole bunch of images of watches all saying 10 past 10. And the reason why is it looks really good. And you can see the logo in the top center and whatever, right? So AI learns from patterns and repetition. And it's just seen that so many times that it's almost impossible to break it because it just goes, clock should always say 10 past 10. Now, here we are as business owners going, oh, yeah, I help this audience, and I help that audience, and I help this audience, and I help that audience. But Ryan, what's the focus of your subreddit? What's the topic?
It's all to do with marketing a SaaS business.
Marketing a SaaS business. So it's I help target audience get outcome via mechanism. So, I help SaaS companies get more clients, lower CAC payback, reduce churn, whatever is the keywords and angles for the SaaS clients via this mechanism, which would be the training, or it would be via Ryan directly, or it could be the platform in subreddit itself. But it's I help target audience get outcome via mechanism. And once we know that, we can go around that again and again and again. So if I bring this back to the fame flywheel, that is the first unit. People don't know what they should be an authority in. And what I just described as an impact statement, I help target audience get outcome via mechanism. But then the next layer down is you probably want to have some sort of methodology that you get famous for. The next layer down is that you probably have frameworks for elements within that methodology, and you're just talking about the same stuff again and again and again. You write a book. The book is about how to get the outcome for the target audience by following the methodology with examples of frameworks within it. And then before you know it, you got a Wikipedia page. That's all the authority piece. The second piece of the puzzle in our world for the fame flywheel, and if you can imagine 3 overlapping circles, the authority piece is the first overlapping circle. The second is predictable leads. And that is because if you you could be the most famous person in the world, but unless you have like an off-ramp or a way to convert that fame into clients, it's just vanity metrics. And I know people on TikTok. I've got about 14,000 followers on TikTok. And I've watched people with $140,000 on TikTok, 140,000 followers on TikTok in the same space as me that are struggling to make $30,000 a year, right? Because they just don't have the mechanisms. Whereas every business in the B2B space needs a predictable leads engine. And there are quite literally, there's only really about 6 ways to get leads. And I won't go into it now, but I'll tell you what I will do, Ryan, is that before we got on, you said, hey, is there something at the end you might want to give away? I'll tell you what, I'll come up with a landing page, and it will be to b2bschool.co/leads-matrix. There we go, leads-matrix. And I'll put in the 6 different sources of leads for B2B. But you need the sources of leads and you need the engine to collect the lead. Now, B2B, because everything that we do is based on trust and it's big ticket, we don't just want first name, last name, email address. We want first name, last name, email address, probably a phone number. And we want to take someone on a journey so that they want to book a meeting with us. And then when they book the meeting with us, we also want to get them excited for that meeting and elevate a little bit of anticipation so they show up. And they show up and they're totally vibed. That's what I mean by a predictable leads engine. It's like an application funnel. We get the leads at the top, we collect the leads as they come in, we educate them and train them as they come through. This here used to be like wild advanced strategy 10 years ago, and you've got like Russell Brunson saying you're only one funnel away. Now this is like it's like having a business card. It's like having a freaking business card. You got to have the basic fundamentals in place to get those predictable leads, and that helps you avoid the feast and famine and the ups and downs. So, I could go on holiday for a month and I know exactly how many leads we're going to get into our business. So that's the second pillar. And then the third one is frictionless offers. A frictionless offer. And that's because back to B2B, everybody gets obsessed with what they do or how they do it. What you offer is different to what you sell. And when you're selling knowledge and when you're selling expertise, there are ways that you can package it up where when you present it to someone, it suddenly is far more compelling. I gave an example of that before, like selling the outcome. Indeed, if you're selling anything in the B2B space, write down these 3 words: outcomes, things, and feelings. Now, if I meet any business owner in the B2B space, I say, what do you do? What do you sell? And they go straight to things. I'm a web developer, whatever it is, and I do websites, right? But outcomes, things, feelings. But however, if I'm a web developer and I know that my target audience are all consultants, I would go, well, as a consultant, you need to put your best foot forward. You need to demonstrate authority and credibility. So I build authority and credibility building websites. And that way, when someone hits your website, they look and they go, this is the person that's right for me, so that you don't have to be pushy into hardcore selling. Outcomes, things, and feelings. And the way that we package it and the way that we bundle it, I find people coming into our world and they're trying to sell what they do and they're leading with the piece of the puzzle that they think is the most exciting, but the client doesn't know that yet. Or they lead with the bit that the client finds most exciting, but then they've got nowhere else to go with that. So there's little strategies. So for example, you can bundle up a bunch of different things, and then the one thing that they desperately want is the bonus. That's the sign-up bonus. So we had a guy recently come into our world, a guy called Dean, and Dean is a Facebook ads agency owner, selling all the same stuff as every Facebook ads agency owner. I'll come in, I'll build your landing page, I'll create your ebook and all this other stuff, right? And then we went, nah, flip it, man. So he began selling them the strategy at the front, and they'd go, yeah, that makes sense that I should buy this strategy. And then he'd come back 24 hours later and say, oh, by the way, if you can make a decision this week, I'll also build a landing page for you, which is the bit that they really wanted. And then 9 out of 10 people reply. He's done the maths. It's about 7 out of 10 will reply and just go, all right, let's do it. I'm in. Then the next day, he sends another one and goes, oh, by the way, I can also do your lead magnet for you too, but you've got to make a decision by Friday. And then suddenly it jumps to 9 out of 10 because he saved the bit that they're worrying about. Here's a little bit of a strategy for your people. We call it barriers to bonuses. So when you're having a sales call with someone, there's all these things in their head. It's not going to work for me because, and write them all down as a list, right? It's not going to work for me because I need this, and I need that, and I need this, and I need that, right? This is the main reason why people say no, is that they don't believe it's going to work for them. So what you do is you write down all the different things, that reason why they're going to say no, and then you create some sort of package or bonus that addresses every single one of those objections, which is what they are, which means that you can pitch to someone what it is that you're going to do. And then you can say, oh, by the way, if you sign up today, we can do this for you. And one of those fears goes woof, and this for you, another goes woof, and then this for you, another one goes woof. And then they go, oh, wow, well, that's really, really good. You don't have to deal with objection handling on a sales call if you've added bonuses that handle the objections. You don't need to do it. So of the 3 circles, we need the authority, because we need to position ourselves as someone of substance in our space. We need the predictable leads engine, which is building awareness of what we do and collecting the leads, preferably also booking those meetings. And we don't say book a free consultation or no obligation quote. We teach our people how to create a meeting that sounds like a product, like how to book a B2B funnel mapping strategy call. Right? Then the third one is the offers. And the offers really comes down to how you're going to structure what it is that you sell, the soft skills. So what you're going to do on that strategy call. And then the last bit is like some of that follow-up stuff, because most of the time you're not going to get a firm yes on the call. You're going to get a tentative yes. And you need mechanisms in place to keep pushing that so you get the close. So in our world, the B2B school, if I talk about our fame flywheel, authority, so that you're not invisible, predictable leads, so you don't have the feast and famine, frictionless offers, so that you're not constantly chasing, having 17 meetings to close one client. And that's our framework. That's our model. And that's what we're also using to train the AI.
That's brilliant. I love that. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people. A lot of the people watching this, incidentally, are either building a SaaS business, or they're running an agency, or they're a freelancer, and they've thought about transitioning into a SaaS business as well. So you kind of get a bit of both. And in both SaaS land and agency land, that whole how do I actually get them to make the decision? In SaaS land, it's like they've done the free trial, they still didn't sign up. What do I do to give them a bit of a nudge to go to mobile line?
Enterprise SaaS is classic B2B.
Absolutely. And even the people selling services watching this as well. That same thing is like, hey, we've had the call, and then you send them an email saying, hey, have you made a decision yet? I think a lot of people are looking for an easier way to add a little bit of urgency to the decision making there. That system's brilliant. I love that. That's fantastic.
Incidentally, I mean, I think that you know this. I spent about 2-3 years of my life building out my own SaaS company, and I ended up exiting that, and our tech co-founder took over that. But what was interesting about that is the strategies that I'm talking about there were insanely effective for the SaaS business. Indeed, they were better than a lot of the things that we'd done. Now, there is clear overlap. So if you're running a SaaS business, there's things like, I mentioned the acronym CAC and CAC payback earlier. You want to be able to sign a client for less than the first 3 months or something like that, depending on how long they stick in their churn rate. And the other things, that even when you look at like a SaaS company, if I go straight down to the authority bit and I talk about the impact statement, the best SaaS companies, it's one person, one problem, one product. It's not a SaaS company that does our SaaS company can serve everyone. Our SaaS company has 47,000 different features. And then this is our SaaS. That's the product. But even from the outset, you could turn around and you say, okay, well, you know what? For this marketing campaign, I'm going to focus on what we call the Goldilocks zone type clients. Like these are the ones that they're not too big, they're not too small. They're right in the zone, and they're going to get the biggest result. They're going to get the biggest wins. And you'll know this. You'll look at your different customers and clients, and you'll look at them, your different users, and you'll go, these users use it. No, yeah, that was all right. And then these users go, wow, I'm getting impact. These users are selling, what is the example I gave before? $9 umbrellas. So they've got to sell a lot of $9 umbrellas to get their ROI. These guys over here are selling $9,000 consulting packages, which means that their margins are huge. So these guys complain that you're selling a $49 SaaS, whereas these guys don't give a shit that you're selling like a $997 a month SaaS, right? So one person, one problem, when you know the person, you can drill down to the problems that they really want to spend their money on. And then that becomes your hero feature. So you're focusing on this particular hero feature, and then the product is that particular hero feature. Now I can take that up a level again, knowing full well that no one wants to sign up for a SaaS company. No one wakes up in the morning going, oh, gee, do you know what I'd like to do today? I'd like to spend another $49 with another SaaS company, right? But they wake up with their problems. We have a saying that smaller promises get faster decisions. So if you've got a clear target audience, you know the problem that they have, stop trying to sell the SaaS as your product, sell like a checklist or a resource, some sort of lead magnet, right? Build your database. Here's your audience. Here's their problem. Give them the checklist. They're 100 times more likely to sign up than a free trial, but you've got 100. Now, of those 100, can you sign 5 to a free trial? So I could send a message to 1,000 people. Let's do some numbers. I could send a message to, I'm going to keep it even simpler. I'm going to send a message to 300 people. 300 people. And I say, get a free trial. And I might be lucky to get 1%, right? Which is 3. Maybe 2%, maybe if I'm really good, 5%, right? Or I go to those 300 and I say, hey, opt in for my free resource. I got this awesome thing. Who wants it? Now I can get as high as 25, 30%, 1 in 3 that opt in. So of those 100 people, which is our limited scarce resource, I can get 5 of those people getting a free trial, or I could get 100 of those people opting in for my free resource. Now they're part of my email newsletter and I can educate them over time. But here's the crazy thing. If I get 300 people and then 100 opt in for my free resource, after they opt in, I will redirect them to some sort of like quiz or diagnostic. And the purpose of the quiz or diagnostic is educating them on the problems that they have. So, it's like, which of these things frustrates you the most? And it highlights 3 problems. And they're like, oh, I have all those 3 problems, right? The next question is, which is a goal that you want the most? 3 goals. I want all those 3 goals. And by the time they've finished it, their brain's thinking, well, if I want to solve those problems and if I want to achieve those goals, this organization is probably the best one to go with. Then at the end of that, you have the free trial and you're not going to get your 1 to 5%. You're probably going to get 30% on the 30%. So we've gone from 300 to 100 to 30, where you may have been lucky to get, 3 to 5 to 15. That is the combination of me going the authority piece, one person, one problem, one product, adding the predictable leads engine piece. And then of course, if you're doing big ticket sales, you want to have a frictionless offer. But even if you're doing low ticket sales, you want to be able to add bonuses. And so I'm looking at it like going, oh yeah, I want to sign up for Ryan's SaaS product, but I know for it to work for me, I'm going to need a Facebook ads budget. And it goes, here's the product, plus sign up today and we'll give you our $300 training pack on how to get leads without a Facebook ads budget. And that obstacle, that mental obstacle just evaporated in that particular space. So it all does come together, whether you're selling SaaS or a complex product or big ticket services, because B2B is the same. We're selling an outcome. It requires trust. And most of the time it's big ticket, but even a SaaS product, which might be little ticket, is still big ticket in the eyes of the consumer, because I've found it easier to sell a $2,000 training product than a $49 SaaS.
You're good, buddy. Has anyone ever told you that?
Wow. Been around the block a few times.
Once or twice?
Yeah.
James, I'm just a couple of last questions. Real quick. I love how we kind of loop back towards some of those trust building mechanisms that we spoke about earlier, because you're absolutely right. If you've got something that is going to provide value to someone, you've already built up the authority, you've got that frictionless offer in front of them. It's going to be so much more effective than hanging around the golf course waiting that for an opportunity to talk to someone. Quite a few people watching this will be pretty motivated. Okay, I need a lead magnet. I need to go out and make a lead magnet and get it out in front of people. You mentioned just when we were chatting before, a really cool tactic that you've used for getting a lead magnet in front of more people. Can you kind of talk us through that real quick?
There's a few. All right, let's look at this. So we're looking at how to build a predictable leads engine. So if we want to build a predictable leads engine, there's a couple of things that we're going to need. One is we're going to need the bait. We're going to need what we're going to put on the hook. And that there is the lead magnet. And the hook and the angle is the most important piece. And we know this because the interwebs are loaded. They're littered with garbage lead magnets, absolutely everywhere. And I still have people say to me this day, oh, you know what? Do lead magnets still work? Hells yeah. Absolutely. They definitely work. But you need to know the target. You need to know the headache that they have before they know they need you. And then you need to distill it into something which we call a back pocket gift. They look at it and they go, oh, that will be useful. I'll download it now and I'll put it in my back pocket because I'll get it later, which defies reason because everything's now available on YouTube anyway, and we could just go into ChatGPT. But one of our more recent ones that was very successful was a media release template. We did something with a partner, and we'd call it our Saturday special. They mailed for us, we mailed for them, and we mailed up their media release template. Like there's a million of these on the interwebs, right? Or we could just go to ChatGPT and say, write me a media release template. That one was very successful because it's people in our audience want to raise their profile. That's one of the big core headaches that they have. And they looked at it and they went, that will be useful for later. I'll put that in my back pocket. I'll download it now. Whatever. So anyway, who's the target audience? What is the headache that they have before they know they need you? Then turn it into something which is a back pocket gift. We've tested custom GPTs. We've created interactive PDFs, all this other stuff. No, small promises get faster decisions. The simpler, the dumber thing that it is the ones that do the best. Like one page business plan, press release template, 5 email templates in a document, right? These are all the really simple things. One person, one problem, one product. What is the headache that they have before they know they need you? Because you go to a web developer and they produce a gift that's the 5 things to get right before you hire a web developer. Now that just sounds like 5 reasons why you should hire me. I got that one. 5 things to get right before you seek B2B sales and marketing training. Number 1, make sure that the founder has a beard with some gray in it and a hat. Number 2, that's what they all sound like and read like, right? So what is the headache that they have before they know they need you? What do they give a shit about? What are they, last thing at night, honey, I can't get to sleep because they get to the office. That's what it's going to be. So that's the first thing. You need the hook. You need the bait. You need the technology or the mechanism to collect the lead. People think that a lead is an inbound email or a referral. Someone reaches out. Oh, you should help my buddy out, Giles. He needs your help. No, we want a mechanism to collect the lead and push them through an experience. Google's already come out a bunch of times with its 0 moment of truth report and these other ones. And they said, and I'm probably going to get the numbers right, but it says it now takes 11 touches across 4 locations, 7 hours of engagement to sell complex B2B product or service. I've probably got the numbers wrong, but it requires multiple touches. The psychologists of the world for decades have said it takes 7 touches for someone to really trust you. Which means that, someone sees you on social media, right? They go to a landing page where they opt in for the gift. We redirect them to some sort of diagnostic, not a survey. No one wants to complete a survey. Surveys take. A diagnostic or a quiz will give. Redirect them to a booking page where they can book a productized version of your meeting. This is if you're selling a complex product or service and you need a meeting. When they opt in for the gift, which was the second step, we're going to send them an email, which we call the promise email. We're delivering on the promise. Here's the thing we promised you. Then we're going to send them another email, which was the welcome email. Hey, welcome to my world. My name's Ryan, and this is my story. One of those rare instances where you can tell your story and you share your authentic connection to the problem that they have. Then we send them another email, which we call the offer. So the 3 emails are the promise, the welcome, the offer. And the offer says, hey, have you done this thing? Which is book the meeting or buy the product or whatever that last step is going to be. 7 touches. 7 touches. And a human hasn't even been involved. So we need that mechanism. We need the bait. We need the mechanism to manage it. And the third bit, yes, we need those eyeballs. We need mechanisms to collect the eyeballs. And there are really only 6. And they operate on a spectrum from very, very manual. And these are usually your friends. And when you start a business, that's your own personal networks, and they're very manual. To the other end of the spectrum, so it's manual but it's easy, but it's low volume. So it's funny when I say manual and easy, they're low complexity. Like, you post something on Facebook and say, hey, I'm starting a new business, whatever. Then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got high complexity, not manual, vast volumes of people, but they cost a lot of money, right? And yeah, and they're things like Facebook ads and what have you. And there's a spectrum along the way. There's things that are push, which is, hey, I'm pushing out to you. You should hire me. That would be me sending an email to my existing database and saying, hey, my personal network, I'm starting a new business. I've got a new SaaS. It's really awesome. I'm amazing. This is amazing. You should buy it. Versus pull, which is, hey, I put this together for my target audience of this particular people. It solves this common headache that they have. If you want it, go here. That's pull. One's push, I'm awesome. One's pull, do you have this headache? Now with your Substack account, that is classic social media organic engagement stuff. You could be posting on LinkedIn, you could be posting on Facebook, you could have a Facebook group, you could have a LinkedIn group, you could have a TikTok account, or you could have the subreddit, right? That's one way to engage with those audiences. Another one that I mentioned, and I think I'm just going to mention quickly because we were talking about it before we got started, but also I kind of dropped it briefly when I mentioned the press release example. A really, like, one of our best, I'd put this in our top 3 ways to get leads, is something we call the Saturday special. And all we're talking about here is a reciprocal send. So if I have an email database and I've got, 3,000 to 5,000 people in my email database, and then Ryan's also got 3,000 to 5,000 people on his email database, and we're targeting similar people, what we will do is we'll do a reciprocal send. I will send an email to my database and say, my mate Ryan has just put together this amazing checklist. Click the link and go get it. Ryan sends an email to his database. My mate James Tuckerman has put together this great thing called the predictable leads matrix. It's the 6 ways to get leads if you're a SaaS company. And then he'll drop my lead, b2bschool.co/leads-matrix, right? Now, you've probably heard about email swaps, reciprocal sends, and we'd done them on and off sporadically for years and years in different ways. We'd promoted other people's webinars. We'd sent direct emails promoting people's services, tried all different things. And then I think it was early 2023, me and a guy called Adam Franklin were trying to work out a time to do a reciprocal send. And we just couldn't. There was no availability in our schedules. And I said, mate, let's just do it Saturday morning. Let's just do it Saturday morning, 10 a.m. And he went, yeah, I got this thing called a 1-page business plan. And I'm like, yeah, cool. I got this thing called how to get 100 leads in 10 days. It's a mini roadmap. And he goes, oh, cool. I'll mail it at 10 a.m. on Saturday. You mail it at 10 a.m. on Saturday. And we both just made it happen. Got on with the rest of our lives. Tuesday, I get a message from Adam, and he goes, hey, did your landing page blow up on the weekend? And I went and looked in it, and we had like 300 extra leads, right? It was like 382 leads. He got like 412 extra leads. The funny thing is, over the next week or two, we both made bank. Those leads converting into clients. And the crazy thing is, some of those people that he was converting had been on my database for 2-3 years and never bought anything from me. The people on his database have been there for 2 or 3 years, never bought anything from him. But the difference is that, I don't know, I wear a denim shirt and have a funny hat, and he wears a fancy suit and has a full head of hair. And people just resonate with different people. And so we both made bank. Now, we call that the Saturday special, and we've refined it over time. You can have a database of 300, 500. Just got to find someone that's got a similar size, and you'll just both keep growing it. And we'll do that pretty much every Saturday. A couple excellent things about it. Number one, you've got to have a gift that tackles a headache. You can't say, register for my webinar or buy my thing. It will tank. We had a woman, Wendy, and we ran a campaign with her, and it was a checklist of 81 sales tools. That went really well. She got like 200 leads or something, right? She went, that's really good. Let's do it again. I'm going to come up with something amazing. And she gave away her $500 training package. She got like 11 leads, right? So a list of tools got 200 leads. This one I got 10 leads, right? Whatever the equivalent was, right? So it's got to be a gift. What works really well are the shortest emails ever, where the headline of the email says the thing that the person's going to get. So if the thing is too hard to explain, it's not going to appear in the headline. The headline basically says 100 leads in 10 days square bracket roadmap. 1-page business plan square bracket PDF. It's got to be as simple as that. The emails that we send usually have less than about 30 words. This is something awesome by way of my good mate Ryan. As the headline says, it is the thing that they're going to get. Click the link below to get the good stuff. Have an image of the thing so it looks like a physical thing that they're going to get their hands on. Because as humans, we want to put it in our back pockets. And then we send it. The open rates 10 a.m. on a Saturday are off the charts, because no one else is sending, no one else is mailing. But most importantly, the unsubscribes are almost zero. So we have a database of about 30,000, and we can mail the whole list, and we might get 5 to 11 unsubscribes. It's crazy, We will send other emails telling a wonderful story, or sharing a case study or a testimonial. We'll get more unsubscribes than we do for our Saturday specials, because it basically says, hey, we're sending this on behalf of our good mate Ryan, check it out. And they go, oh, that's nice, that's generous. And they don't do it. But if that can be turned into a system or a process, that's no money down. It's just the time spent having conversations with other people. I spend 0 time chasing clients, and that is because I have the mechanisms for the clients to come in, but I will spend a decent chunk of time finding other people to partner with and forming reseller channels, because one relationship can get me 10, 50, 100 clients and beyond. Anyway, that's one strategy for getting leads. So we've got our hook, right? Our bait. We've got our mechanism for nurturing that lead. And then we need 1, 2, or 3 different mechanisms for consistently being out there, being visible, and feeding our funnels.
That is genius. I love it. James, just before we wrap things up, two final quick questions. First of all, are there any books or tools or resources that you would recommend B2B School, what to entrepreneurs? And I'll stick links to that below, as well as the Leads Matrix as well.
Sure. You mentioned a little bit earlier. You said you see people that are struggling in your subreddit group because they're trying to sell like $11 products or $5 products, and not all audiences are created equal. We have when we teach people in our world, if you're starting a new business, we will say sell something that's big to a rich audience that has the money. That rich people problems are the best problems, right? So what we'll typically say is, when you're starting business, we will typically say aim for 3 to 5 clients paying $3,000 to $5,000 a month. So in worst case scenario, 3 times 3 is $9,000. Best case scenario, 5 times 5 is $25,000. And what that is going to do is it's going to give you minimum moolah. It's giving you the money that you need to be able to keep this ship afloat. Then you can drop it down to another level. So in our world, we have a product that we sell, which is $4,800 a month. It's called our Scale Circle. And we work quite closely with our clients at that particular level. We work with the authority piece, the predictable leads piece, the office piece, depending on what's most important for them. But once you've got something like that nailed, you can go down a level. So we have another level down called the Momentum Club. And the Momentum Club is $999 a month. Now, if you've got a business and you're generating, $30,000 a month, $25,000 a month, $300,000 a year, that's not a big deal for you, right? So it's not a big deal. But however, for that particular audience, we're not working one-on-one. We'll be working as a group, and there's benefits in that. And we've gone down a level. So you can go 3 to 5 at that particular level. Then you might have your 10 to 50, even 100 at that particular level. And then you can drop down another level. So we've got a membership which is $99 a month. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to make it so that, all right, mum's the word. If I give away my gift for b2bschool.co/leads-matrix on the success page, I'll have that particular membership with an offer. I'll sharpen the pencil a little bit, all right? But you can only offer a product for $49 a month or $900 or $99 a month or whatever until you've got that minimum more. And that's the way that we structure it. Now you can have one lower than that, and that might what we call a self-liquidating offer. A self-liquidating offer. And the self-liquidating offer is you can sell something for $27, $67, $97, and I can tell you, if you're selling a $49 SaaS, you will have more success selling a $67 snackable item of content than the $49 a month thing, which means that you can sell your $67 thing with a $99 order bump and this and that, and use that to offset your marketing so that you can get the person to buy the $49 product, because by now they're in your email database. Indeed, I would suggest one of the smartest things that you could do is create like a 5-day challenge or a 10-day challenge, which is about delivering a specific outcome. But while they're learning how to get that outcome, in the process, you introduce your product or service, which means that you're training them how to use your thing in the context of the outcome. So you are paying money to get the clients. Now, that was a really big roundabout way of me. You said, are there any resources that are useful? Of me coming back to this idea of time. You could spend months, if not years, trying to sell a $49 product. Or you could spend a month selling a $5,000 product, right? And you'll know whether people want to buy it or not, right? You'll know in a month, which is not 10 times more. It's like the equivalent of signing 100 people at $49 a month. And this is millionaire maths. The resource I was going to refer back to is buy back your time. Everything is about time. How you manage your time is absolutely key. But imagine this, right? You go, I want to have a business that does $100,000 a month. You need 1,000 people spending $100. That's really, really hard. I know people that have been in the business for years and years have never had 1,000 customers. Then you go, okay, what I'm going to do instead is, why don't I have 100 people? Well, I could have 20 people spending $5,000 a month, easier, or I could have 10 people spending $5,000 a month and 30 people spending $1,000 a month. Or I could just have, I'm trying to do the numbers here in my head. I could have, what's the numbers? 100 people spending, no, I could have 100 people spending $1,000 over the course of a year. And I've made my $100,000 a month. Or, and I'm sure my maths is getting flaky, but this is the other key that I wanted to get to, is that I could be selling a $1,000 package, or $1,000 package, or $1,000 package, $1,000 package, or I could sign up people for a monthly recurring revenue package. And that's millionaire maths. Bigger people, smaller numbers of people at bigger price points on monthly recurring revenue plans. And if I had the chance to start again, biggest lesson that I would learn right from the outset is that I would be focusing on the sale of monthly recurring revenue products. That doesn't mean I would lead with that. No, I would lead with a lead magnet. I would probably follow it up with a standalone gift or product. I might even sell a meeting. I might even sell a high ticket standalone version of what it is that I do. But everything that I'm doing is working towards that monthly recurring revenue.
And each one of those steps is building trust as you go too, because they see, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about. This guy can actually deliver. Okay, and when it comes time to that selling them that monthly recurring revenue piece, they already trust you by that point, and then it's a no-brainer. That makes perfect sense.
Ultimate objection buster. Because as I said before, smaller promises get faster decisions. We're not trying to sell marriage. We're trying to sell an opt-in gift, and the price is first name, last name, email address. Then we're trying to sell like a $67 product or a $97 product that's standalone. Then we're trying to sell a $1,000 half day or a strategy or order or something like that. Then we're trying to sell like $1,000 a month. And you can sell that $1,000 a month off the back of the strategy day. Because you say, hey, we've just done a strategy day. We've isolated all the different problems that you have in your business. So what we'll do now is I'll give you a credit on your first month. If you want to continue with me moving forward, we can start today. And we won't bill you for another 30 days. They go, really? How generous. But what we've done is we've handled all the objections and we've built trust on the way. Seth Godin has a fantastic quote. Seth Godin says, I can't work with you until I've worked with you. And this is how most people feel. They don't want to spend money with you until they've worked with you. I can't work with you till I've worked with you. So that's what we're doing. We're creating these micro gambles for them that they can follow, and we can tackle their own version of false evidence appearing real.
James, last question, buddy. If anyone is interested in getting in touch with you or learning more about B2B School or learning more about what you do, where should they go?
I think I just got to go create that link, my friend. b2bschool.co/leads-matrix. I gotta write that down, but I will create it, and there will be a resource on the other side, maybe even a video talking about the 6 ways to get leads, and then I'll redirect to something special for your community if they're interested.
Sounds awesome. And I'll stick links below and when I send this out via email, that as well. James, it's been a pleasure, mate. It's been a pleasure as always.
Awesome to catch up. Just amazing that we can do this when you're in Argentina and I'm in Australia. Let's not make it so long between catch-ups next time.